Day with a high of 60 degrees and a calm wind. Tonight, partly cloudy, overnight low of 35. Monday's weather mostly cloudy, 51. Tuesday, mostly sunny with a high of 65. Wednesday, mostly sunny and 50. Thursday, 60% chance of rain likely, cloudy skies and 52. Friday, another 50% chance of showers, mostly cloudy and 53. And on Saturday, Veterans Day, sunny and 50. ON, AM, and FM. Welcome to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno.
What were the Denby lights? How many witnesses were there? Where did the lights come from? And where did they go?
Welcome to the 1020th edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno, coming to you from WOON AM and FM radio in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, on the Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live and on YouTube. I'm Tim Swartz, guest co-hosting via Skype today, and Paul's with us too, coming in through Skype as well.
How do you like my new synthetic voice produced for me by Boston Children's Hospital? I'm here. How do you like my new synthetic voice produced for me by...
Pretty creepy if you ask me.
It's getting there. I mean, there might be a way we could just pipe it straight into your microphone. But we'll get there when we get there, I guess. But hey, you know, that's not the reason we're here, even though it is a little spooky and we're a little past Halloween here. Today we are pleased to welcome a new guest on a new case. Gary Jones dedicates himself to investigating a wide range of fascinating subject areas, such as UFO and ET phenomena, ancient history, false flag events, and forbidden knowledge and sciences. Over the last 7 years, his UFO investigative work has produced some fascinating evidence on solid UFO cases, such as the Pentec incident, the Denby lights, the Caldecott Triangle, and others. His objective is to discover the truth about the world in which humanity lives. Very noble pursuit. Gary is also a political activist who works to expose the UK government, businesses, and mainstream media as corrupt. When he's not doing that, Gary has spent the last 10 years pursuing his interests in photography, art, and reading. He has had numerous sightings and paranormal and supernatural experiences throughout his life. His book, The Denby Lights, a truthful argument for the existence of UFOs.
Gary Jones, welcome to Behind the Paranormal.
Thank you for having me on, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you with us, especially on something we've never really talked about before. And we thought for years ago that we would run out of things to talk about when we first started the show, and boy, oh boy, were we wrong. So I guess to kick off the show, so can you give us a little bit of background about the case and tell us, kind of give us the play-by-play of it, if you will?
All right. It involves a family of four who live up in Denby, North Wales. And it was during a stormy and rainy night. It was actually a big storm up in that part of the UK. And it was about 3 a.m. in the morning, January 3rd, 2012. And one young boy named Nathan Thomas, who was 12 at the time, just heard a noise coming from outside. He looked out to see what it was. It was his big council bin, rubbish bin blowing over. And as he looked out, he saw in the background, or up in the distance, there was a series of flashing lights, which he couldn't understand. He thought, was it coming from the reflection on his TV or light or something in the room? But it wasn't. He opens the window, and there it is, this oval-shaped, disc-shaped looking object with these incredible flashing lights on it. And he went to wake his brother up, Alex Thomas, who was 14 at the time. He was just trying to get asleep, and then there's his brother saying, "Come here, there's a UFO outside." And he thinks he's winding him up. And they both then go to the window, and, well, you know, Alex said that when he saw it, you know, so well, he's tired, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, you know, it's like instant awake, you know, your body's just quickly switching back on. So they started filming it because Nathan had a video camera given to him for Christmas, was a Camilio S30. I think it was made by Toshiba. At the time, very decent camera, but obviously by today's standards, pretty subpar. But it did the job that it needed for the time. And what they caught on the video was this really strange, you can even sometimes make it out, the oval disc-shaped appearance of it, but more so the unusual flashing lights, which are nothing like I've seen on an aircraft or anything on a plane or on a building or anything that would normally be explained by paranormal or supernatural explanations, or even just some of the more far-fetched things that people say. The mother, Linda Pritchard, woke up by Alex just a bit later. She's downstairs sleeping, trying to get some rest, and Alex comes down with such a, quite a high, high intense energy, like, ma'am, come look. She thinks the house is on fire, but then there's nothing going on. She goes to the window, and later they're followed by the fourth and final witness, Kira Lee George, sorry. And they're all looking at it, and I've had a chance then to interview them, do some investigation work. There was a preliminary investigation done by a man named Peter Glynn during the early years, but I didn't get involved in the case until about 6 years after. So we're talking like 2018, April 2018. So by then, the boys had grown up, and all the young teenagers are adults now, but they've still got the video footage. And I had a look at it, and I thought, it was like 10 minutes long. It was like two different sets of videos, but they added up to about 9-10 minutes worth of video footage. And I was just like, wow, that is definitely real. I've seen something like that myself. And
Gary, may I ask where that video can be seen? I saw it on YouTube. If you have a link.
I do have the video in my documentary on my Rumble channel. It's broken up into two segments because I had to transcribe the video, put the subtitles into it, just so that people can hear what they're saying. But in the video itself, you can genuinely see what's actually on there. But yeah, that's on Rumble. It's on my channel. It's under the Denby Lights UFO investigation. I also put a bit of it as well in my presentation that I've done recently in June. That was down in Newport. They had a conference down there, and they asked me if I'd like to speak. Yeah, so if you want to see the video, you can see it that way. I haven't got the full, I can't exactly just put the video up and say, there you go, because obviously they're copyright material, but I had the permission to use it for that moment, because, I was the only one really. Besides, you'd think by now someone from media would have picked it up, but after that preliminary investigation that Peter Glynn did, he, it's like the case just went dead silent. I was like, 6 years on, and you're telling me no one's looked at this? You probably got some of the best video footage I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And, some of the best locations for investigation work, and you're telling me that no one's ever looked into this, and I was shocked by that.
Yeah, me too.
Well, there was an argument that we heard from a guest we had on not too long ago who made the point that there a lot of ufologists will focus on a lot of the old cases, the Roswells, the Betty and Barney Hill incidents, and they focus on that, and they kind of ignore some of the newer things. I mean, with MUFON and groups like that, you have more people focusing on newer things, but there's a large focus on the things that have happened 50, 60 years ago versus what's going on within the last decade or so. So you're missing a lot of events and things that are happening that are quite significant. And with that, you have that subtext of the title of your book, which is a truthful argument for the existence of UFOs. Now, this is probably going to sound a little antagonistic, and I'm not trying to sound antagonistic. So with disclosure, right? The whole disclosure movement that's going on, as such as it is, I mean, with the Pentagon coming out and all these other groups saying, oh well, we know they exist, with an argument of a truthful argument of the existence of UFOs. What's the argument to be made if it's kind of becoming more and more accepted? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of funny how all this stuff has just suddenly gone into full. Well, I wouldn't say it's gone into full mode, but it's certainly getting there. We're getting more witnesses coming forward and more expert testimonies. What we're not getting is, shall we say, the more investigative side of physical evidence or scientific analysis on things. You know, I mean, I really want to see the ships. I want to see the aliens. I want to know who they are, where they come from. But when I say truthful argument for the existence of UFOs, you bear in mind I've been working on this case over six. Well, actually, no, what are we? 2012. So you know, yeah, I came away with it in 2016. So we're going up to. Hang on now, I'm losing my track of thought. Yeah, 2018. So you know, you're talking like 4 or 5 years here. Around that time, I could see, you know, that this really just needed some investigation work. But once you conclude it, it is a genuine UFO event. And the reason why I call it this is my book here. The reason why I call it that, a truthful argument for the existence of UFOs, is because you see that thing there? That was an actual, I mean, that's just an artist's impression done by Jason Gleaves. Now, Jason Gleaves is a former RAF man, and he does a book called UF Only. And he does investigation work, analysis with videos and pictures, you know, and he uses a lot of different filters and techniques that he's obviously acquired over the years. Very professional guy when it comes to doing stuff like this. Very talented as well. And he was able to like sort of get some sort of idea of what this thing looked like. And that artist impression there, in some ways, kind of gives you a shape of the lights look on the bottom, on the top, and underneath. And I thought, he concludes that it's unexplained. In other words, it's a genuine UFO. I've looked at all possible avenues that what this thing could be. There's no explanation for it. You've got 10 minutes worth of video, 4 great witnesses, and all these other explanations which don't stack up. So the reason why I say it's a truthful argument for the existence of UFOs, the argument I'm making is that if you're looking for a case which proves it to be true, that, you know, that UFOs are real, that they exist, and there's evidence to support it, well, here you go. It's right there. You know, because by the time you finish reading it, time you look at my documentaries and stuff as well that I've made for it, presentations, what else are you going to conclude? There's nothing. I've looked at everything possible. It's not planes, it's not helicopters, it's not lightning, it's not some, you know, something reflecting off of Venus, you know, the usual explanations. I mean, Mick West actually did something on this very quickly. He called it aliens on golf carts. You know, so I'll give you kudos for that one, Mick, but you know, I didn't come up with that one myself. But if you're suggesting it's people on some sort of a bike or quad or vehicle that can run across grass, I mean, there's a very thick woods next to the golf course up there, and you know, in order to continuously circle around for 15 minutes, which is how long this sighting lasted, in order to keep doing that, you'd have to drive through trees, very thick, dense branches and trees, and you're not going to be able to get through that very smoothly because you'll just be crashing into things. To mention there are fences. So, yeah.
Gary, besides the family, were there any other witnesses? I mean, I know this took place, you know, like really late at night, but did anybody else report seeing this?
If they did, I haven't had a chance to meet them. There's only the four family that saw it from the bedroom window. And while they all give their own different explanations as to what they're seeing, you know, they all conclude the same thing. It's oval shaped. It had a red light on top. It moved from a horizontal to a vertical position. You can even see that in the video. And it was dead silent. And of course, you know, 50, 60 mile an hour winds, freezing temperatures. It's like 0 degrees or just above. And yeah, you know, poor visibility. And yet there's this thing floating just a distance from them. And they said it was about 60, 70 feet maybe wide. I haven't had any other witnesses come forward to me. If they are there, if anybody's seen anything, please get in contact with me. I have been putting the word out there, but unfortunately, this particular case is not getting, I think, the traction it deserves because, you know, although there are bigger cases, I guess, you know, the ones that really grab people's attention, you know, this is a nice, solid case with a good bit of evidence to back, with all this evidence to back it up, and yet, you know, it's just been kept under the radar, to say. I mean, I am quite surprised about that.
Why do you think it has been kept under the radar?
Well, in one way, you like Owen just said, you've got all these ufologists and groups that concentrate more on the older cases because obviously they generate the most interest. The Rendleshams, the Roswells, you know, things like that. But I mean, there are 2 cases that I've worked on. I mean, the Denby Lights is obviously. When the video came out, there was a I can't remember the DJ's name now. Why is it I forget that important detail? But there was a very, very popular musician who picked up on this, and he posted it on his Facebook page, and that exploded the views on Peter Glynn's video page. So obviously the interest was there right then, but I guess no one capitalized on it. If I was there at that time, I would have, really taken that to new heights. The other case I've worked on, I'll just mention it quick, is the Penturk incident one. Have anybody seen that one? Oh.
I'm actually not familiar with it. If you want to give us a little bit of, give us some background on it.
I'll just mention it quick because I don't want to take time from the other book. February 26, 2016, Kaz Clark and her neighbor David, that's his anonymous name to hide his real identity, of course. The community had witnessed planes circling and doing zigzag patterns over their area for like 3 days and nights, wondering if, there's some sort of exercise taking place, but no one was confirming that. Media were asked, they ignored it. And the St. Athens base, which is not too far away, didn't give any indication that there was an exercise taking place. So on the Thursday, was it the Thursday night or Friday night? I can't remember. But that night they decided to go and do a sky watch. So they're watching from the back garden of Kaz's home. And for hours, this plane circling and not really doing much. It's getting cold. They want to go in, even though they've got a log fire pit there. Yeah, very quickly, more planes start joining in. One of them's an E3 Sentry. And then sometime later, then these lights started to appear over the farm fields just up behind their house. Started moving across over the farm fields. They ran to the gate, which is the entrance to this area. But when they got there, these lights lit up, more and more. And then it turned out to be this massive triangular pyramid-shaped craft, and it was huge, many hundreds of feet high and wide. It shot out multiple barrel-shaped orbs out of the top of it. The craft itself looked like it may have come very close to making contact with the ground when it let out a huge arc of lightning from the one corner, which really lit it up in an orange light. That's what the color of the lightning was, coming from the corner. And then two of these barrels came over to Kaz and Dave where they were by the gates. Actually interacted with them, and one of them was very close to Kaz. She was like looking up at it like this. You can see it in the picture. You might be able to see it. That's her waving at this thing. That's very much how, although it's an artist's rendition, it's a very close approximation. It wasn't very far away. And it was red, it went to green, and then it bathed her in this green light, her and Dave, but especially her. And then later on, there was a loud explosion over Smilog Woods area, which is 5 miles from Penturk, northwesterly. People living in the area were wondering what the hell was going on, because that explosion was powerful. Shook a hospital, shook homes, set off car alarms, made people jump out of their beds. We're talking something seriously big here, very powerful. And then later on, we've investigated it all, myself and Kaz, and we've had friends and other witnesses who have come forward now. And we've concluded that this thing did actually come. They knew it was coming, the military. They have covered it up. We've uncovered the cover-up. And we are more than certain now, with all the new witnesses we've got, that they did shoot one of these barrel-shaped objects down and it went into Smilog Woods, breaking some trees. And we have a witness or two who actually saw the object on the ground when they were camping in the woods that night. It's a lot to go into, but I'll just put it this way. Me and Kaz Clark have spent years working on this, and I got to give Kaz her due. She has gone through hell over this case, but she's really earned a lot of people's respect, because not many witnesses would put up with that. Not many people would go through all that, because she's been threatened. She's had her life threatened, and people have tried to silence her and shadow ban her and call her out and just character assassinate her. And they've done it to me too, but they've done it more to Kaz because she's the one that was the witness to it all. But it's a cover-up. We've uncovered it. The military, the Air Force have admitted there were no exercises for military or Air Force for that night or that month in that area. And of course, there's no paperwork, there's no documents, and there's just nobody can confirm an exercise of any kind, which is what their cover story was. So if you didn't do any exercises, why is it that you had all that military firepower, Air Force, and everything else when you say you had no reason to be there? So what you did was illegal, basically, then, if you were flying around like that all night. Unless you had an excuse. Just to intercept the UFO, this interdimensional craft, this pyramid. But anyway, I was actually investigating that one first, and then I got into this one at the same time. So I was doing two very big cases very much straight away. And, yeah, I mean, obviously that one is not gone as... I mean, the Pentook one's gone quite global because of everything involved. You know, there's ramifications on a huge scale for that one, for humanity and the safety of everything. But you know, the Denby Lights is just it's one of those nice cases, and North Wales is notorious for some of the most impressive cases in the world. The Berwyn Mountains.
I was going to ask you about that. So go ahead.
Well, there's a case that happened in 1974 in the Berwyn Mountain incident. It was called. Oh, I wish I remember the names. I know them sometimes, but when I need to figure them out. But it's in North Wales area. There's a place called the Berwyn Mountains. I'm not too sure the name of the village, but the village around there heard this loud explosion. Again, shook people's homes. It was measured on the Richter scale at something like 3.6. The military were on site pretty quickly. The residents living in the area thought it was a plane crashed or something, as something happened to them. Just very quickly, they went up there to investigate, and the army was sort of like leading them away or encouraging them to turn around or send them somewhere else where nothing was really happening. But one witness saw the massive spherical object that was up in the mountains. She was driving down the road. Her name was Pat Evans. She was with her two teenage daughters, and she saw what it was, this spherical, orange, glowing, pulsing like orb. It was massive. There seemed to be military people with lights up above it, like floodlights looking on it to sort of get a better idea of what they were looking at. And then at some point, she got scared and worried with her daughter, so she drove off. But later on, that thing was seen going over North Wales and heading out to sea, apparently, by some witnesses. That's what I've come to understand from the later parts of that. That's become a very big case. There's also another one called, there's a book coming out about it now. It's called The European Roswell with Gary Rowe. The author of the book and the guy who did the movie for it was Mark Ollie. They recovered a piece of this unusual craft. They said it exploded over a farm field of 4 fields. Gary Rowe was a UFO investigator in 1983. And this is more West Wales, really, sort of northwesterly, but it's still up in that area. Wales is not that big a country. But they recovered a piece of it, and Gary had it tested, and according to him, he says, it's made of human materials, but it's designed in a way that you could say is just far more refined than anything we've been able to do. Do you know what I mean? It's more advanced. So I look forward to seeing the book on that one, because I'll definitely be getting a copy, because that case is very interesting. And then there's just another one I'm familiar with called, it happened in 1979, and this is a good Welsh name, Llanelchemedd. Residents living in the area said they saw a bullet-shaped craft come out of the sky. It landed behind a farm field. There was a residence just over the other way. A couple of witnesses were close to see what was coming out of this craft. 3 7-foot-tall humanoids in silver radiation looking like suits. They walked around for a bit. One of them was in pairs. I actually met the one lady. She still lived there and told us all about it. And I was like, wow, mad to think you're still here, I guess some people stay close to their home, don't they? But she saw it, and they went back into the bullet craft and took off. And there was a big investigation again. Military showed up and did all this stuff. Did all these investigations. There was a report made on it by Bufora. I have all this stuff in the book. I make a historical note of it all. And there's other cases I could mention, but those are the 3 big ones, really. I mean, we do have some in South Wales too, the Broadhaven Triangle. That one's been a big one, but that was more South Wales way. That's been on Netflix recently, if you've ever seen it. UFO Encounters, or whatever the hell it's called.
It's on my list. Unfortunately, I haven't had any time.
It's a very, very, very good case. I mean, children saw some strange object in the sky. They reckon there was even an occupant that came out and waved to them. But I'll let people look at that one, not to take two prize away. But this case, yeah, I think belongs in that kind of folklore. Belongs in that sort of thing. Because, I mean, it's got video evidence. It's got witnesses. It's got, on Peter Glynn did some real good work in the beginning because the family were looking for someone to really get into it. It's a shame I wasn't there, really, because I would have just spent quite a lot of time on that one. But Peter did a really good job of getting testimonies, getting them on camera, doing day and night comparisons from the area where this thing had been seen. He went up to the site itself to see if he could find evidence of human activity, and did some analysis and things like that. So I asked him, I said, wow, I think you've done something good here. I said, I've got some ideas to take it more forward, expand it. Would you mind if I used your stuff? And he said, yeah, go ahead, And yeah, from there I expanded it. I looked at weather reports, radar returns. I tried contacting the police because they were contacted. They said it was Lampers. I looked at Google Maps, to do size references, and I went up to the area myself to take a look around. I think it's important to go to these areas if you can and see what's what. And I learned along the way that not just, and I also said I could get the video analyzed, but I also learned that there's a bit of an ancient woodland up there, which quite a bit of it was chopped down not long after the event. That seems to be a trend in these UFO cases. If something comes along, maybe in a matter of days, weeks, months, they always go up there and they chop these areas down.
Interesting. Well, now we're coming up to our mid-show break, but you do bring about a very interesting segue I wanted to get into once we get back from our break here. So you're listening to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno, with our special guest Tim Schwartz, as well as our wonderful guest here, Gary Jones. Excuse me. Pardon me for allergies here. And you're listening to Behind the Paranormal. We'll be right back.
The American Top 40 Vaults and is replaying original shows from the 80s. This week, Casey takes you back to November 5th, 1983. That's when Billy Joel fell for an uptown girl. Air Supply was making love out of nothing at all. Men Without Hats were doing the safety dance. And Lionel Richie partied all night long. You'll hear those songs, all the top 40 hits, and the long-distance dedications from November 5th, 1983, right here on American Top 40, the 80s.
Local and live at 99.5 FM.
Welcome back to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno, coming to you from WOON AM and FM here on beautiful Blackstone River Valley in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. And our special guest co-host as well, that's Tim Schwartz, who's coming to us via Skype, and our wonderful guest, Gary Jones, talking about the Denby Lights and all sorts of other high strangeness. And now I wanted to get into a very fascinating subject for me personally, which is the idea of ancient sites kind of correlating with paranormal phenomena. So you started to briefly mention that before we went to the break. So I wanted to kind of pose a little extra divot in there, if you will, which is, have you found that there's other phenomena like correlating or coinciding with this, i.e., like the Green Children of Woolpit with Rendlesham Forest, in that sort of vein, some sort of odd happenings, maybe fairies, anything like that, folkloric significant events?
Yeah, I have looked into that. Again, I looked into this when I was studying the area because I wanted to see if there was a pattern of strange phenomenon or something happening. And there have been talks about strange dragons that lived under Denby Castle. Supposedly a man, I believe, with 8 fingers slayed him. There's also been talk of, strange lights in the sky during the 1700s, and there was even a story about a woman who was walking around Denby Castle. Denby Castle seems to be a center hub for some of these things, where she was walking with her dog. The dog was bathed in a light of some kind of made him sort of shimmer backwards. She reached out her hand to go grab her, and she got burned by the thing. And she suffered some injuries from it. But yeah, there's all talks of like when you say fairies, I think spirits. People seeing ghosts. There have been paranormal activities up there. There is an old hospital, a mental hospital. I don't think it's standing now. I think it's been shut for a long time, but there's been talk of all kinds of crazy things going on up there. Butchery and strange experiments and on people. And I wonder if that's got something to do with demonic stuff. Because I'm hearing the stories. I don't know if I can verify them 100% for you, but I'm always interested, about this idea that a dragon lived in the area and it was slayed by a man who had 8 fingers. And I'm like, where do you get stories like that from? They got to come from somewhere, right? You don't just invent them. But the ancient woodland thing, I mean, this is an area of Christmar Woods, it's called. It's just, I've tried to ask anyone, why did you chop down this section of trees just 5-6 weeks after the event? And I learned that by speaking to Margaret Pritchard, the sister of Linda, and auntie to Nathan and Alex. She said that to me when we were walking around the area. It was a lovely, beautiful woodland. It was always a lovely scenic place to take your dog or just walk, get out into the the wooded areas, the birds, the lovely sounds of green and all kinds of flowers and stuff. And then one day they just came in and chopped it all down. And I'm like, why did they do that? And I've asked them about it. Oh, no one knows why. They just did it. And it is an area of special scientific interest. It is protected under certain heritage and foundations. You don't just go in there and start messing around with the place, but somehow these people did. What I've also come to learn from Peter's work is that there seems to be a cave system there. It's not actually, if you were to walk along the road that leads up to where you can park up and enter the path, you can see there's like a caving system or something like that rests on underneath the woods, like on top, and then of course there's a caving system underneath. So yeah, I mean, Wales has its fair share of stories, especially in the northern parts, of goblins and strange ghouls and spirits and ghosts. I mean, I don't know all the stories. There's quite a few of them in the book I put for just people's attention. But what's interesting when I say Denby Castle is just a month after the event, there was a story in the local press up there from a man named Graham Evans. That was his name. And there was a disc-shaped object he caught on his camera. Took a picture of it. He saw it. He got 2 pictures, I believe, maybe more. And there it is, a disc-shaped object, very much in similar shape to the one the family saw. And the Denby Castle is not that far away. It's about maybe 3 miles, 4 miles in a straight line. So this is a very local area. I mean, but it's just interesting. I mean, a sighting like that, usually when it's close and it's witnessed for such a long time by the family, I often wonder, are they in the area again? Do they stay around? Which seems to be the case. They always seem to. That may have been the main event of the sightings of that time, but there's still sightings like it, very similar, but not as impressive, before and after as well.
How long after the? I'm sorry, Ben.
Oh no.
How long after the UFO incident were the trees chopped down?
Well, 5 or 6 weeks.
Wow.
So that brings up an interesting question, which is, what do you believe the relationship is between these other events and the Denby Lights? Do you believe it's sort of like a separate thing? Okay, these are extraterrestrials that are coming down to interact with us, or is it something more? Is it something that's more in tune with the prior phenomena?
Maybe a bit of both. I do believe there has been some pretty interesting work done on this, but there's a lot of craft coming in and out of the North Sea area of Wales. Wales is in the north part of Wales, and the sea beyond that, there's a lot of craft seen coming in and out of those waters. I've got a case which I'm looking at now. I'm trying to get a time to meet the sea because I want to go up there myself and have a look. But she reports seeing something coming out of the sea. There's other people who've reported seeing stuff coming in and out of that area. And it makes me wonder, is there a base there? Is there an army base or some other kind of base, maybe? Another thing, when you say about the phenomenon of things, the ley lines are something I'm interested in. Supposedly these lines of energy that travel around the Earth, they gather, they sort of harness in certain directions and branch out. But then they have hub points where they really gather at, centers as well. Wales in particular, especially Britain, has a lot of UFO sightings, the major ones happening on these lines. Rendlesham, Sheffield, the Nottingham case of 1984, or was it 1987? It's in the book anyway. Penturk happened on the same one. The Denby lights happened on it. The Berwyn Mountain happened on there. Llanelch happened on it. The flipping Gary Rose case, the European Roswell, as he calls it. Europe's Roswell, as it was called. There was another case up in Wilsthorpe that was which was looked at by Paul Sinclair. That had a lot of orbs and ships coming out of the sea, but it hasn't really. I don't know if he's done more work on it, but I found it when I was looking at the Penturk one. And of course, there's RAF bases around this area. They always seem to build or fly in these areas where these things are happening. And of course, medieval sites, churches, stone monuments. Yeah, a lot of stone monuments too. To me, it's all connected. And I think after having a lot of time working on these cases hands-on and learning these things, yeah, it's a bit of both, really. I don't know if those craft. I can't say those craft are extraterrestrial, although the family are adamant that they are. Mm-hmm. I would go along with it. Yeah, it's probably extraterrestrial because, if we haven't got them, who the hell? Then someone else does. Simple as that. Simple logic.
That's a good point.
But, unless someone proves otherwise. But at the moment, if we don't have them, someone else does, then it's got to be extraterrestrial. Or maybe some ancient civilization that's still with us, but we haven't found a way to contact them yet. Or don't want to be contacted. That's the only other explanation I can come up with. But yeah, I mean, it is definite, and I think this thing has been with us for thousands of years, because even when you look back in biblical texts and ancient readings and scriptures, there's always talk of these things, and although the descriptions are different, they always describe the same thing: lights in the sky, strange beings, or beings that are not human but look human, that kind of thing.
Yes. Ancient aliens, if you would. That is interesting, and there's always been a question in the back of my mind, discussing all of this, that is, I find very pertinent, which is perspective, right? We all approach things with a different perspective. Unfortunately, there's an objective reality, and we all experience it subjectively because it's informed by this external third party, which some could argue is prior experience or sort of prior knowledge that we walk into the event with. Our sort of theory of the paranormal is you kind of bring into the event what you get out of it. If you walk in expecting to find ghosts, you're going to get ghosts of dead people, right? You walk in, you're looking for UFOs, you're going to find UFOs. You're going to it's like you see a shimmering figure outside and there's an orb above its head. Aha, an alien. You see a shimmering figure inside your house. Aha, a ghost. And context is incredibly important, in my opinion, especially when it comes to perspective of events. Because although I do understand the family's point of view, okay, this is definitely extraterrestrials, because I wasn't there, right? None of us were really there. All we have is the evidence that we have before us, and we kind of try to interpret it. But that's the hard part, is the interpretation. Because it's very hard I always find it's very hard and also very limiting to the human spirit if one looks back in time and says, yeah, no human could have built the pyramids. That's impossible. And it's, meanwhile, the Romans are building columns and creating, indestructible cement. And it's like, they're just real smart. And it's one of those things that I always kind of find to be the idea of perspective, and how, the subject-object problem is like 9/10 of the problem of any sort of paranormal research, because it's understanding the objective reality through our subjective lens, which is the hard part, the very, very hard part. So with that being said, is it that our ancestors or all these people with all this folklore interpreted everything incorrectly, and they were just dum-dums that didn't know any better, because they didn't have iPhones? Or could it be that we're using the limited perspective that we have, and they use the limited perspective they had to try and understand everything, because they didn't have Star Trek, they didn't have Star Wars, they didn't have Michio Kaku or any of the physicists and scientists we have today. Could it be perspective that's the issue?
Well, of course, perspective is always based upon your knowledge and experience and what you know and what you can figure out. If you're just one of these people who, I guess, let's say you're living in the Stone Age, and your only source of perspective in life is that you just have to hunt, you have to feed, and you have to kill to survive, and move around with the seasons. All you're basically doing is, you recognize basic things, your basic needs, and that's it. You recognize danger when an animal is close by, or you identify fire as being something hot you don't want to touch, or if you see something sharp, you move away from it, that sort of thing. I guess what I'm saying here is, if you're just someone who's very primitive, you're going to see it in very primitive ways. And if you see like a bright light or something incredible, or something like that, then obviously you're not going to have the awareness and intelligence and experience to know what you're looking at. You'll just see sparkling lights and, oh, that's incredible. But like, when you say, in today's world, I mean, I don't know if there's that much perspective as it is anyway, because a lot of people are very dumbed down. They only know what they see on television. They only know what they read in the papers, and they only know from some of the crappy education they get from some of the state schools. I'm not saying all schools are bad, but some of them are flipping terrible. You're taught what to think, not how to think these days. You're not given critical thinking skills. You're not given the ability to analyze or ask pertinent questions. You are told that this is what it is, and that's the end of it. So if you were to see something like this, and you're coming from that kind of mindset, and this is something I couldn't get into here, you're seeing something like that. I mean, let me just show you here. I mean, this is a slide of the thing there. Can you see it?
Oh, yes. And for those of you who are listening on the radio, we are being shown a picture of the event, which you can see at our show recording.
Okay. Obviously, in color, that's a lot more impressive, and I've done other slides of it myself. Now, if you're obviously like us, open-minded and willing to expand your consciousness and just see it from, and expand your perspective, yeah, you'll say that that's a round object with strange lights, and, that's not aerodynamic. It doesn't conform to any of the things we know. But a person who's not able to think like that in terms of their, you say perspective, right? They'd say there's no such thing as aliens, there's no such thing as UFOs, and whatever that is probably just someone messing around with lights or Photoshop or something. Do you know what I mean? They will not accept it. Their bias gets in the way of everything, even though you can explain it to them. I said, look, it's clearly a physical object. It's clearly there. You've got video of it. You've got families of it. You compare it to other things about, whether it's lightning or arcing or flashing bulbs or swamp gas, if you want, or somebody playing a trick on you, trying to fool your senses. None of those things stack up. So now that we've broken those walls of ignorance down, or destroyed those areas of thought, what now? Well, it's probably just something, you're probably just confused or something. They just will not. It is cognitive dissonance. They always wrap it round in a way they can explain it, and they'll come up with any explanation you want to, like the alien on golf carts thing. I mean, for crying out loud, like.
Okay, yeah, no, I think I do see where you're coming from, because I'm of the camp that, for the believer, no proof, no proof is necessary, and for the non-believer, it's no proof is enough kind of idea. But that is a slightly more nuanced take on the idea of gathering evidence to be able to present an argument, and I do appreciate that, because it is incredibly hard to be able to do that. And speaking of providing evidence, tell us a little bit about your books, where people can find out more about you, and et cetera, et cetera.
My books are on Amazon. Both of them are on Amazon. I provided you with the links. I mean, this is the one I co-wrote with Kaz Clark. This was like the first 5-6 years of what we done. That's available on Amazon, called The Panturk Incident. This one, The Denby Lights, A Truthful Argument for the Existence of UFOs. That's also available on Amazon. Just type in Denby Lights UFO. I've provided links from the American and the British, sites, so people can get those there. They're available. They're the Denby Lights one anyway. It's available in hardback, paperback, Kindle, or audio. So any one of those that takes your fancy, by all means. If you've got Amazon Prime, you should be able to get some of those kind of things free. If you've got a Kindle version or an audio version, you might be able to get those free. So there you are.
Lovely. Are you working on anything else? Any new projects coming up?
Yes, I'm currently just looking at a number of different cases. There's something going on up in, like I said, North Wales, but there's definitely something I'm doing in Monmouth, Abergavenny. There seems to be a bit of a hub spot developing there. I'm still trying to promote, obviously, the Denby Lights book. If any TV company's interested, get in contact, because I think the family would love to. Some members of the family would love to, get the world to know, because they are adamant that this is real. And they've been treated badly by some people, especially Nathan. The whole family's coming to stick, but he's, because, he was really enthusiastic about this in the beginning, but now he's like kind of gone into his shell a bit because everybody's abusing him online and calling him stuff and all that. And it's like, screw you, like, you idiots. But I think it would be good, I would like to get that case promoted. I'm not sure if I've got plans to write another book on UFOs at the minute. Me and my friend are sort of writing a book on a different thing at the moment. I won't go into details on that, but it's like a film idea he came up with. And I don't know. I've just got all these different things I'm going to try. So,
yeah. Well, hey, it's good to try. Tim, you got any questions?
Well, he answered the one. I was curious about how the family had been treated after the initial incident.
If you look at the video, when you go and see it on the documentary there, you'll see that, they're all enthusiastic. They don't know what they're looking at. It's like, oh my God, that's amazing. This is incredible. Nathan wants to put it on the post or put it on YouTube. Alex thinks there's a crop circle going to be there. And, he's even worried that some sort of Men in Black style person's going to come and take them away or whatever. But they're all, and Kira's like, oh, wow, this is, just amazing. And even now, after I interviewed them, to this day, they're still wanting to see this thing again. Kira said it best. She's a big Ed Sheeran fan. She thought if she could go to a concert, or she could win them, with Ed Sheeran, go to all the backstage passes and, go on the tour with him and all that, or win the lottery to go and, live your dreams. Or to see this thing again, she said, oh, I'd love to see this thing again, because it was amazing. It was priceless. Which tells you a lot. But like I said, in terms of treatment-wise, I mean, I think, they've all got thick skins, but because, usually the first person who reports it, the person who, because that would be Nathan, because he's the one that recorded it and talked about it. He's really come under a lot of stick. People just lay into him all the time. I'm like, what is your flipping problem? Why are you being like this? And, I don't know. I can't say. All I can say is it's really brought him down, and they've all just come on a stick. And I would really like to put it back in their faces. You know what I mean? I say, I've got a documentary, I've got a presentation, I've got the book, I've got all the evidence you could possibly ask for. So back on you. You know what I mean?
Have you had a response from the book that someone has said, you know what, you're right. You have presented an argument to me, and this, I'm on your side now. Have you ever had that kind of response from your work?
Oh, many a time. People have said, this is. Yeah, I mean, I've had a few Amazon reviews. I've had a few people read in the comments, brilliant documentary, brilliant thorough investigation. Can't deny it. The only thing that's really stopping again, and the more recognition is there, is just because it's such an underrated case. It's not getting the attention it deserves. Like you say, MUFON or other UFO investigators concentrate on other things. I've got two cases that have happened in the last 10, 6, 7 years, and they're some of the best cases out there right now, evidence-based wise, and yet, they're either being shadow banned or no one wants to talk about them. It's ridiculous.
So, with that being said, how do you view the future of ufology? What do you think is going to sort of make the next step? Trends that you've been seeing and how things have been going in sort of the wider world, if you will.
Well, if they were to announce tomorrow that we're not alone, the ETs are here, and this is where they're from, we've got a couple of names, to me it wouldn't make any difference, because I'm prepared for that sort of news. But obviously the vast majority of people are not. So I think there's a delicate situation you have to handle here. Obviously they're going to keep doing like those hearings, David Grush and that other fella that was on the Nimitz. I can't remember his name right now. I think at some point they're going to have to confirm with, like, NASA's going to have to say it, although NASA no, but what's going to happen is drip by drip by drip, but the drips will get bigger and there'll be more information and there'll be a lot more understanding and acceptance from people. I think at some point the media are going to have to focus all their attention on this and really educate the people slowly. When they're ready, I think, maybe in a couple of years' time, the history of ufology, us as ufologists, will probably no longer be needed to investigate, because the truth will have come out. By then, we'll probably be the people who will be answering all the questions. Where are they from? What's all this about? How do you know? And all that stuff. We'll be like counselors, I guess. Relating people's trying to ease people's fears. But I mean, look. The ETs could come down in their ships and go all over the world and come over the biggest places and show us right now that they're there. But I think it's going to have to be done like bit by bit, because although the acceptance is there now, it's been proven true. But still, you're going to have to take it slowly. But I think the history of ufology will be we'll be vindicated for sure. The witnesses who have been silenced and all the experts who have been threatened will be vindicated also, and then it'll be a new and exciting prosperity of trying to figure out that we're not alone in the universe. What's the hidden technologies? What's the hidden budgets that you guys have been taking away from us? I see a lot of possibilities, but there's a lot of dangers to it too. People could panic. There could be. Some people are saying that some of these ETs are hostile and they're coming to, they're just getting ready to come back. So, you have to deal with it how do you deal with it? What is the process? All you can do is just educate and hope, that people will stay calm. I think having these hearings is probably the best way, but I would like to see more physical evidence now. I would really like to see physical evidence of this stuff and, sign to say that this is made of material we don't have. That would be the next step for me.
Yeah.
I think you've got to show, then we can start looking at the technological side, because I know they've recovered technology and I know they've got stuff that could revolutionize the way we live, the energy and food production and the way we could travel. Do you know what I mean? But you can't just replace one with the other. It's got to happen over a period of time. So who knows how that's going to get done. But I think physical evidence is definitely next. They've got to start showing the physical evidence, because I'm sick of hearing words and documents. I want to see physical evidence.
Well, true. Plus, there's no guarantee that the truth they're telling is the truth, right? They could be, saying whatever they want, really, and it's that's partially me being a little bit cynical about anything that comes from the quote unquote government, where it's if I barely I barely trust half the things that are coming out of Washington now, let alone anything that has to do with some cosmic like civilization, right? Possibly. It's that's the thing. It's being discerning, I believe, is important.
Oh, you need to be. You need to be. You need to do that, otherwise you're just going to fall for everything again. You need to ask. This is the time to ask all the critical questions. Don't accept it. I want evidence. It's great to hear, what they call ETs is non-human intelligence or non-human biologics. And then they talk about non-human technologies and stuff, and it's like, that's your word for extraterrestrial and UFOs, fine, but you're still admitting it. You've admitted that that's real. Now what we need is, it's like, stop trying to convince people that, stop trying to convince people it's real. Just tell us now what it's about, who they are, where they're from. That's the next step.
Show, don't tell, if you will. Well,
yeah, Gary, put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly. Well, Gary, thanks for being on with us. It's been wonderful to have you, and I hope we can have you again soon with some more fascinating information, especially about these little known cases too, because there's always more that we can learn. So Gary Jones, everybody. And I guess now it's about time, because we only have a little bit of time left in the show, to hop into some of our announcements. So over the next few weeks, my dad and I will be working with Reverend Michael Carter of Ancient Aliens on a very special podcast with new information he has recovered on the Ancient Aliens theme, as we've been sort of discussing. This will be fully video and posted on our YouTube channel, and more information to come on that. The Greater New England UFO Conference / Bigfoot Conference is back. This will be a one-day event on November 19th at the Veterans Memorial Center in Leominster, Massachusetts. You can look for more of the Greater Greater New England UFO and Bigfoot Conference on Facebook for more information on that.
Visit our show's website, behindtheparanormal.com, where you can find nearly 1,200 hours of our regular shows and special broadcasts since 2008 from CBS Radio, Achieve Radio, and here on WOON AM and FM. Also hear many of these broadcasts on the major podcast platforms, including iTunes, Apple Podcast, and YouTube.
So what's going on next week, Ben?
Well, next week, that's November 12th, we'll bring you an open line show with guest co-host Mark D'Antonio to answer listener questions on all sorts of paranormal subjects. And if you have any scientific-related questions, Mark is the man for that, especially anything astronomical.
We leave you today with a jarring thought from the great quantum physicist Niels Bohr. Everything we call real is made of things that cannot be regarded as real.
There you go.
There we are. That was my dad, Paul Eno. I'm Ben Eno.
And I'm Tim Swartz. Thanks for joining us on our great cosmic journey, and we'll see you next time on Behind the Paranormal.
Return to this radio frequency 167 hours from now for another edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. Broadcasting live and local daily from the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Studio